Good evening and thanks for joining us. Hundreds of Canadians who spent weeks stranded in the heart of the outbreak of the new coronavirus in China are now back on home soil. Two planes carrying 215 passengers have touched down at Canadian Forces Base Trenton in Ontario. They'll spend the next 2 weeks at that base under quarantine, being monitored by medical staff to see if they develop any symptoms. Chinese media is now reporting there are more than 34,000 confirmed cases and more than 700 people have died. The bulk of those are in China. Outside China, the single largest group of confirmed cases is on a quarantined cruise ship in Japan. 61 people on board have tested positive, including 7 Canadians. Thousands of passengers on 2 other ships are also caught up in this outbreak. One ship is under quarantine. The other is stranded at sea after being barred from docking in Japan because of fears passengers might be contagious. We'll bring you the latest from those ships in just a moment, but first to CFB Trenton, where more than 200 people are settling in for a 2-week wait under quarantine. Global's Jeff Semple is there.
For the 174 passengers on board this chartered flight, stepping onto Canadian soil has rarely felt so sweet.
The first thing I did was, because I do have snow pants with me, I just went and lay down in the snow and smelled the fresh Canadian air and just enjoyed the snow falling.
This Montreal family snagged 4 coveted seats on the government flight sent to pick up Canadian passengers from the epicenter of the coronavirus outbreak.
Boarding the plane, obviously we were in contact with armed forces volunteers that were there to help us evac, and then it became much more stringent.
Passengers were screened for symptoms before they boarded in Wuhan, then again when the plane stopped to refuel in Vancouver, and again after finally arriving at CFB Trenton. But their journey home isn't over yet. CFB Trenton is Canada's largest Air Force base. They fly search and rescue missions out of here and international deployments to places like Afghanistan. But for the first time in its near 90-year history, CFB Trenton is a quarantine zone. The passengers must now remain on base, mostly confined to their rooms, for 2 weeks to see if symptoms develop.
A lot of concern, a lot of worry.
Rich Fabich's toddler was with her grandparents in Wuhan when the outbreak hit. He's been scrambling to get her out.
So there's a feeling of helplessness.
His daughter was put on the flight to CFB Trenton and is now in quarantine, so he traveled here to join her.
I'm going to take the appropriate precautions, but what do I want to do? It's absolutely see her 14 days sooner.
If a passenger contracts coronavirus, they'll be transported off base to this local hospital. The mayor is now fielding calls from worried residents.
First, I guess, concern was that they're coming here with the virus. No, they're not.
But many here are actually going out of their way to welcome the new arrivals. The local grocery store is providing platters of food, even planning a party for when the quarantine is over.
They're Canadians and we take care of our own. That's just what we do.
And it hasn't gone unnoticed.
They had a lot of stuff right there waiting in terms of diapers, clothing, gloves, toques, jackets, you name it, they have it.
The government says 2/3 of Canadians in Wuhan who wanted to leave are now out, and it plans to send another plane next week to retrieve the rest. Jeff Semple, Global News, Trenton, Ontario.
Now to the hundreds of other Canadians under quarantine tonight on 2 cruise ships. At least 7 Canadians aboard the Diamond Princess have tested positive for the new coronavirus. They are now receiving treatment. Thousands of other passengers, including 271 Canadians, are stuck at sea on a 3rd cruise ship. The Westerdam is not under quarantine, but Japan is refusing to allow the vessel to dock. And as Crystal Goomansingh explains, passengers are left floating on uncertainty.
The captain is going to allow small groups of passengers to go out of their cabins.
It's a small step, but after being stuck inside the Diamond Princess cruise ship since Monday, fresh air is a luxury. Diamond Princess officials have now screened passengers they believe were potentially exposed to the virus. The Japanese Ministry of Health has advised Princess Cruises that the quarantine will end February 19th. Another ship, the Westerdam, with 271 Canadians on board, is sailing off the coast of Taiwan while it tries to secure a place to dock. There have been no reported illnesses on board. Meanwhile, Cruise Lines International Association is telling all of its members not to allow anyone to board who has visited to or been around an airport in Hong Kong, China, or Macau.
Cruise ships are basically, floating towns where everyone is coming into close contact with each other, thousands of people potentially. So they're a perfect place where these types of infectious disease outbreaks can breed.
In the fight to stop the spread of the virus, a 14-day mandatory self-isolation is being imposed in Hong Kong for all residents arriving from mainland China. Anyone caught in violation could be fined, even jailed up to 6 months.
The whole idea is really for this person to stay at home and not to, go out.
People are afraid of this potentially deadly virus, and they're angry. Tributes are forming to honor a doctor many consider to be among the first whistleblowers to raise the alarm about the virus.
He just tried to tell the truth. Actually, it's the regime that is allowing this virus to spread around.
Similar expressions on the streets of Beijing for Dr. Li Wenyang. I deeply regret his death and feel sincerely sad for him, said this woman, adding, I hope he did not die in vain. China says it will investigate the 34-year-old doctor's death. Crystal Goomansingh, Global News, London.